All right. I made a game. Well, kind of. So, about 5 months ago, maybe, my son, maybe even 6 months ago, my son says, "Hey, Dad, I want you to make me a game." And he knows that I've been wanting to make my own games for a long time now. So he's like, "All right, make me a game. You can do it." Okay, what do you want it to be? Well, I want it to be Santa Claus. And I want it to be Santa Claus throwing pizzas at alligators, because that's what I had in my dream last night. Oh, okay. And then it needs to have like 120 players, and then lots of bosses, and it needs to have lots of explosions, and then Santa needs to be able to like throw exploding pizza, and then maybe he needs a machine gun. Oh, and at that point we hit the brakes. So I said, okay, I promise to make a game if you promise to let me choose the style and the scope. And apparently that worked for him. He said, sure. So I have, in fact, made a game. But not really. I've made the concept of a game. This is nothing more than a Flappy Bird-esque game where you're throwing slash side scrolling shooter, and you're just gathering points for everything you hit. Now, the reason I'm making this video is to remind myself of where the story started for how I'm building this game, and to give myself an overview of what this game is. Because this is not a game that I can package and put anywhere, and in its current form, I wouldn't. It's not terribly exciting at the moment. My son is enjoying it, but he has to use my computer to play it, which, with how young he is, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of, "Hey Daddy, can I go to your computer and play the game?" So my goal is to get this all packaged up and put on Android, and if I can figure out and if it's cheap enough, other platforms as well, and just post it for free to say, there you go, son, your game idea is now a published game out there on the internet for anyone. And in essence, here's how it works. And in honesty, it doesn't sometimes. Credit where credit's due first and foremost. This game is based off of a tutorial by Unreal University on how to make a Flappy Bird-like game. You can see the similarities going on currently at the moment. And more credit where credit's due, if I'm going to get this thing packaged up and put on Android, that was actually quite a chore to get the APK package all bundled up and actually working. And this channel got me most of the way there on figuring out my issues. I'll put a link to both of these at the bottom so I don't forget. So in essence, what is the game? It is a main menu, and you click, which will be touch screen controls, and as you click, you throw pizza. You throw pizza, Santa gets lighter, Santa goes up, and for some reason he keeps getting heavier. Maybe it looks like more pizza's coming in later, or something like that. Artistically, I didn't really want to be bothered by modeling things. Since I'm an animator, not a modeler, my modeling is way too slow to make the timeline, and I want to make this as cheaply as I possibly can. So the art style I went with is, hey kids, gather around. Let's fold origami together. So for the most part I did, although my daughter has been actually quite helpful with the trees. I had an origami method. It took me about 3 days of folding to finally figure out how to make an arrow shape, and my daughter just took my folding and simplified it into 2 folds and made the exact same arrow but much faster, and she figured it out at 5 years old and in 2 minutes. So credit where credit's due, the trees are my daughter's. My son said he doesn't need to make any of the origami since the idea is his, and he would rather be a manager than a creator. So, way to go, 7-year-old entrepreneur. Okay, so artistically, what's going on here? Not a lot. It's origami, and the materials have a slight complexity to them. Anything that gets further in the background gets a little bit more desaturated and a little bit lighter. Just like things happen in the real world, that means I can use the same green grass disc asset and the same tree asset and make things feel like they're further away. The material is doing all the coloring for me. And the general idea is this might look like a child is playing with it. The alligators here will be on popsicle sticks. Santa kind of looks like he's being pulled by a string. So luckily that's kind of built into Unreal where you can have rope physics. And that seems to be working out fairly well. I just need to get some textures going on for that. The trees are randomly generated. I'm making like basically a pool of trees, and these discs are actually boned objects just rotating. Santa is only moving up and down. It's the world and the crocodiles that are moving, not him. And therefore, what's going on is when the trees get close to coming onto screen, when they get to a certain like height in the world, they will attach themselves to one of the bones on the disc, and it will just be a random bit, lots of random trees, random mountains, and we'll have other random bits going through as well, such as clouds. The full goal of the game will be to have alligators, like so, and it will be probably having penguins being a bit more of attacking from different angles, so the game is not so easy. There are different angles of attack that come at you. And then I will have one boss in the game. Currently, my children's idea is that it should be a giant snowman that comes into the screen and says, "Roar!" So we'll see how all that goes. So the programming on this is slightly broken, which is another reason to build it all from scratch. But a lot of the programming on this is done through the player character. So the player blueprint currently has the code for firing off the pizza and increasing score. And then when everything begins play, there's a whole save system to save the high score. Event tick, so what's happening often is basically, this is just helping me control physics a little bit. So when I click a button, it goes up, but I'm using this event tick to add a force down to control the feel of how heavy it is, and not just letting gravity be the only factor in that. All of this is the control, so when you click the right mouse, it's checking, hey, can the player actually move, or are they already dead? So is it worth doing this? Is it already disabled? And then it'll be playing a sound, it'll be adding an impulse. On event hit, this is where things such as score get updated, so we know what the high, basically this is the character dies, and we know what the high score is. So if I were to, no, if I were to play the game and get a 1, and then, come on, hit me. Hit me, alligator. There we go. Okay, so it says my score this round, and then it will give me my high score. I think I have some, yeah. The rest of it here is checking for overlap. Have things been overlapping, yes or no? I have a pause game menu set up, and this is just only for troubleshooting. Okay, so everything else is fairly straightforward. We do have these rotating discs, and this code is going to change on my second round here, but when we begin play, we're looping through and we're checking the sockets. I put a socket on each bone, and we're basically making an array, and we're taking the trees that are in the list and randomly assigning a tree to each one of those sockets and basically attaching it. The code on this is going to change quite a bit. I'm going to switch to something called object pooling. That should help things run much more efficiently, because one of the big issues that I'm currently having in this game is that the tree count is fairly sparse and slightly boring. It would look a little bit more interesting with a denser forest. But when I get a denser forest, what's happening is that it might be easier if I go to a map here to show myself. What happens is these discs are huge, and so it might spawn, you know, a couple hundred trees per disc, and so then it has to keep track of all that sprites. My frame rate goes way down. Performance is just in the gutter. It doesn't work. So the idea is I'm going to have a set amount of trees over here. I'm going to have basically a height check. I'm just going to basically, on a certain tick rate, I'm going to check if that bone, if a bone or a socket, if possible, is above a certain height in World Z. If it is, go ahead and grab one of those from the pool, attach it, and then once it gets down here below that height in Z, it's going to say, on another tick, it's going to check the same thing of is it in, and if it's not, release any tree that you had, deactivate all trees so they're not doing anything. They're here, they're not being deleted, there's no like deletion plus spawn event taking up too much space. And that should be the vast majority of the game. The penguins, I'm hoping to do a little animation to where they're sliding along here on the ground as they come into screen. You know, the classic Mario 64 belly slide penguin. Hopefully the origami penguins come sliding in and then come shooting up at a much steeper angle towards Santa there, making it a little bit trickier to avoid when multiple enemies are coming at you at once. So that's probably going to involve some preset animation and then triggering into an angle towards Santa. And then for the boss, I think what I'll probably have it happen is at a certain score, it will trigger an event where the other characters stop spawning in, and one big character spawns in, and he'll have a health bar, and you need to hit him multiple times. Everything else here is just going to be finding the fun. You know, maybe it's more fun that if the alligators need to be hit twice, maybe the penguins can't be taken out by pizza. Maybe it's best if you actually try to land on their head with some velocity. Or maybe when Santa is throwing his pizza, instead of being so completely horizontal and flat like he is, maybe he is tilting up and down. So when he's going up, it tilts his nose down, and when he's going down, it tilts his nose up a little bit, or vice versa. Just adding in, I want pretty fine controls on it, but I want the timing of the crocodiles, the timing of the penguins to be a little bit random, so the challenge isn't preset in memorization. A couple other things that are important to me is I know there's a lot of red and I know there's a lot of green. So I don't know a lot about color blindness other than some folks in my family have it. So I will be working on hopefully the main menu to get just maybe a simple button that has a eyeball that's a rainbow. You click on it and that can change to different versions of colorblind, since there's more than one kind of colorblind. And that could change the material colors on some of these, maybe just through an overlay or something. That could make it easier for colorblind people. I also want to make music for it. I'm thinking probably, since this is handcrafted with all this origami, the music probably should be too, so instead of like using keyboards and guitar or anything like that, maybe just a little bit more like the very beginning of the Katamari Damacy intro, to where it's all just kind of vocals and beatboxing and just, just kind of playful, almost like a kid could make it kind of idea. And anything else will just be quality of life. Like, so if I'm going for colorblind, I think I should also do maybe slightly visually impaired, to where maybe the sound effects, like through the sound effects of when the crocodile comes in, or some sort of height effect, you can hear how high the crocodiles are coming. You can hear when the alligators are launching off the ground. So I think that covers all my goals for the game. And so what I'm probably going to be doing through YouTube here is making myself tutorials on some of the parts that I implement that actually work. So when I start from scratch, get things working, I'll probably make a mini tutorial on that, including how all the origami was folded, and give credit, perhaps my daughter will be making the origami tree video tutorials. Alright, that's it for me. I hope that's enough of a reminder and motivation to keep myself on the project.